Hey, it's Joy. I've got big feelings about little things, and I want to talk about it. Oh yeah, I'm mad about it. And the fact that everyone else is not up in arms about it is a big part of the problem. Oh, I bawled my eyes out, like I always do. It was the sweetest thing. Oh, it was the cutest thing. It was the funniest thing. Thanks for being here. Let's go. Well, hi. How you doing? Thank you so much for being here. I am having big feelings as usual. This time they're about the moon. Yes, the moon. I was video chatting with my sister the other day and she's like, oh no, there's a full moon out tonight. It is gorgeous. And I meant to just open my windows and make sure I could really soak it up and just look at it, appreciate it, enjoy it. It's so peaceful, so beautiful. I love it. I hate that I wasted some of those hours with that beautiful full moon. And I thought immediately, how interesting is it that two people with different experiences, different angles to look at things, different filters through which to put things, see something so differently. And although, of course, I can objectively say, yes, a full moon is very cool. The light looks great. I can see how it's beautiful to look at. But because I am a nurse by trade, I cannot look at a full moon without thinking about what that means for my patients, my workflow that day, what kind of random stuff I'm going to run into. I would say many nurses have that. We're like, oh gosh, it's a full moon. And I say that all the time and have experienced it so many times. The very first time I ever experienced it was in nursing school. I was not even a nurse yet, but I was in this at the end of school, you go to, like, you can call it a bunch of different things, like an internship or a capstone or, some kind of a fellowship or something, but it's where you're doing your very last like class wrap up stuff. You're probably practicing for some tests, and then you go for however many shifts and you work alongside a nurse in the unit that you kind of think you might want to work in. So I was at this ICU in Alabama where I went to school. And I just remember we had a really, really rough night. People were acting crazy. We were having a hard time keeping up. I was doing night shift. And was I doing night shift? Maybe I left. Oh, I left at 7. So it was dark by the time I left because it was the winter. And I was driving home thinking, what have I gotten myself into? And I looked up on the way and it was a full moon. And I was like, oh, people always say this. It's like I've probably seen it on ER or something, or Scrubs. It's like they say that when you go to a full moon, everybody acts crazy, especially at the hospital. Especially at the ER, I would say. I didn't work in the ER. I never have. I don't think I could hack it, but I can definitely imagine it's worse in the ER. But it just makes people crazy. And I'm not sure whether I had any big feelings about the moon before I became a nurse. Maybe I did. I have a very specific memory of being in a speech class when I was in high school. I think Miss Monroe was my teacher. And we were doing speeches about stuff. And one time we were trying to do a convincing argument speech or something. And this girl got up and did her speech about the moon, trying to convince us that the moon has an effect on our personalities or our behavior, more like our behavior. And the thing she said that really stuck with me is, so the moon, because of its gravitational pull, it affects the tides, right? I think we all know that. We agree on that. It pulls the tides to be higher, lower, wherever they are in the cycle. The moon's in charge of the tides, and a tide is like an ocean full of water, right? And we, as human beings, even though we don't see it with our eyes, we are made up of something like 70% water. And I think even someone like me that's chronically dehydrated probably is at least 50% water. And so well over half of what our body is composed of is this material that is affected by the gravitational pull of the moon. So if it's strong enough to affect the tides, and the tides are way, way more water and heavier and harder to manipulate than that, wouldn't that mess with us somehow? And since you can't see it with your eyes, it would be hard to make that connection and hard to understand what's going on, and really hard to even describe what is the craziness. Because if you said, okay, I believe you, nurse, what do you mean everybody just acts crazy? I'd be like, I don't really know how to describe it better than that. Just everybody's just off their rocker in a little bit. Everything's just not, I don't have a specific thing that I think I'm going to expect. And that's the part. It's like you don't really know what to expect. You just know it's going to be something. It's going to be full moonish. So when I see a full moon, I'm like, oh, glad I'm not at work, or that's why today was crazy, or get ready. Tomorrow we're still going to be feeling, it's not a full moon at one moment. It's over a couple of days that it's getting to that place where it's getting almost full, exactly full, waning back. And I really do think that being in this line of work has changed the way I've thought about some of those types of things. When during my first job ever, I worked at a neuro ICU, and that means people that have had strokes, or they have brain tumors or seizures, things of that nature. It's brain related. And we were having a really, really rough couple of weeks. And by that, I mean everybody was super sick. Things would keep going berserk that we didn't expect. It felt like we were so full, and we didn't have space for everybody, and we'd have to find a place for people to go. We didn't have the beds for everybody. And I kept looking outside. I was like, is it a full moon? Like, why is this happening? And it was not a full moon. So I was like, okay, something's going on, but I don't, what's going on? And then the next day it got worse, and the day after that it got worse. And so I finally pulled up my phone and I typed into Google, what is going on right now? And because I was really at a loss. I was like, what is going on right now? And the first thing that popped up was Mercury is in retrograde. And when I read that, I had never heard of that before. And it's somewhat on the same lines, obviously, because it's solar system related. But I'm going to mess this up, so do not hold me to this, and I'm not an astronomer. But there's something about like where we are in the orbit. It makes it seem like Mercury's going backwards until we catch back up with the orbits or something. And during that time, which is usually, I should have prepared for this and looked this up, but that's not really my jam. It's something like 2 months maybe, or I don't know, or I don't know. It's definitely a few weeks that this time period where Mercury is in retrograde. And it's like, it's that same kind of concept. It's not about the water in our bodies, but it's like something is weird, and it's in the air. Something's weird. They say like, don't make any big decisions. Don't make a major purchase. Don't sign a contract during that time. Don't make any massive life decisions, because people are a little goofball and things are a little goofball in the air, and you just want to make sure everything is like more settled before you make those kind of decisions. But I'll tell you what, the fact that it was so bad that I had to generally ask like the universe, meaning Google, what is going on right now? And that was the answer. And I kind of track that a little bit. I'm not obsessively looking because I'm also the kind of person that doesn't look up side effects of meds when I start taking them because I don't know, I might like be looking for it a little too much. Now, if I start experiencing something, I'll look up, hey, does this cause this? Is this normal? Is this what's going on? But I don't want to put that in my head. So I'm not tracking. I don't watch like today on the calendar, Mercury goes in retrograde. But I sure do when I start feeling like something is weird, I'll look up. Are we in a retrograde period right now? Okay. We are. It's going away in 2 weeks. I can hang for 2 more weeks and I'll just be mindful that things will resolve. And that's exactly what happened that time in the ICU. As soon as Mercury got out of retrograde, things kind of calmed down. And so that all that did was just reinforce that belief. It reinforced, hey, guess what? Everything's going to get back to normal. So all that is way over my head, but it's really something I believe. And when my sister was like, I hated missing that, I was like, I'm glad I missed it. It's not peaceful for me. All it makes me think is people are going to be crazy. So I also, like 3 different people have said, do not mention this. Do not mention this. You're going to embarrass yourself. Do not mention this. You shouldn't have ever told me. Do not mention this. But I also have big feelings about the moon because I am not, in most circumstances, I am absolutely not. -1, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I really don't know that we landed on the moon. I'm really not sure. And some people will say they have debunked it over and over again. I don't know. There's a big conspiracy theory that we never made it and that not like one random guy named Joe, but like the government. The reason we were trying to get to the moon, I mean, besides just wanting to make it to the moon and probably trying to beat Russia there is my guess. But JFK made it a goal to get to the moon by the end of the decade of the 60s. And when did we quote unquote, see here I go, quote unquote, land there? It was like fall of 1969. Like, okay, well, we barely made it. Good for us. I'm like, okay. And people will say there's tons of different stuff about it. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. You can look it up if you want. It's not that interesting. But, you know, the flag was stiff and how would it be waving? And, you know, the video looks horrible. Even though it was the 60s, I'm like, how could the video not look horrible? That's like saying, hey, why does that picture of you from the 80s look so yellow? It's like, well, they all did. I mean, that's the best. That's the best we had back then. Of course, the video looks horrible and grainy. But the reason this is really funny to me is because I'm not like really caught up in it. If you're like, you're kind of dumb, we did land on the moon. I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah, we did. I don't care. I just really don't think we did. But this girlfriend of mine was at dinner the other night with her husband. It was date night. They have been married for, I'm just going to estimate, something like 10 years. I think they dated for like 2 years before that. They've known each other for a really long time, right? When you've known somebody for that long of a time and you're married to them and you live in the same house and you have kids together and you've planned this life together and you've made all these, you've made all these decisions together and you had all this dating time before you had kids and you talked about you'd stay up all night talking about everything and all that over all these years. Never had it ever come up except the other night on their date night. Somehow it came up that she also doesn't really think we went to the moon. And the shock, I'm retelling a story. I was not there for it, but she's a good storyteller and I know her husband. And she said the shock on his face that he's learning something kind of surprising to him, because he's one of those that would tell me, do not tell people you don't believe we landed on the moon. Do not tell anybody. There's evidence everywhere that we did it. And you seem a little bit off your rocker to say that. Do not tell people that. I'm like, well, I'm not embarrassed about it. I don't think we did. But the look on his face to realize something, not only just realize, wow, this is something I never knew about this woman that I'm in love with and have these kids with. But it's also like this specific thing. She said it was honestly hilarious. And him trying to process, wait. Wait, I don't feel like I know you suddenly, which is of course not true, but like, have you ever done that? Like learned something way into a relationship and you're like, whoa, if I'd ever had to guess where you landed on this topic, never in my life would I have thought you landed on this side of it. Yet here we are. And so that date night just dissolved into a full landing on the moon conversation, whether we did, whether we didn't. And I think just after that, I was on a plane and I saw this movie with Channing Tatum. Sorry, Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson about faking a moon landing, and it's trying to kind of give us a reasoning of why people think it was faked and it really wasn't, and all the blah blah blah. It's not a documentary. Don't worry. I mean, I know you kind of figured that out when I said Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, but I was like, y'all, I watched a movie about your date night, and the dude's like, quit bringing that up. I'm like, no, I think it's hilarious. Because number one, of course, she and I think the same on this. We land on the same side of a lot of conversations like this. And just to be honest, it makes me laugh so much that it was such a shock to him. So I don't even know why I ended up down that rabbit trail. Oh, because we were talking about the moon. How in the world do I have such big feelings about the moon? And I'm not even a werewolf, But that's what being a big feeler is like, guys. I am very curious, would love to know if you are willing to share. I would love to know whether you believe in the moon landing or not. I have a feeling everybody does, but I don't know, maybe not. Call me if you would. Send me a voicemail, 214-519-9373. Also go to my Instagram. I have a poll up in my stories. Do you believe we landed on the moon? And I don't mean ever. I mean that first time. Do I think we've ever been to the moon? Yes, I do think we've ever been to the moon. Do I think we went to the moon that day? That first time? I do not. So I'm very curious. I'm very curious what the poll will show. So let me know. 214-519-9373. Would love to hear your thoughts on the voicemail. And if there's any other random conspiracy theory you believe in, tell me about that too. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for listening to Little Things, Big Feelings with Joy Delaney. Do you have big feelings? Joy would love to hear them. Call and leave a voicemail at 214-519-9373. Thanks.
Oh, you have to say the number again.
Why?
In case they missed it.
They can just hit that button and rewind 15 seconds.
Okay, I guess, but what if they were getting a pen?
A pen? This is a podcast. It's all on your phone.
Yeah, but don't you still have to type it in or something?
That's not really how any of this really works. That's 214-519-9373. Is that good?
Thank you, James.